the universe seems to work. And that's what's led me into the investigation of these possible Earth changes and the geological changes that could have, occasioned the disappearance of high civilizations here on Earth. And that's what led me to the Hopi. And in fact, that's what leads me to think that there are things we can do, provided we stop stonewalling, provided we kind of share our database, and we don't sit with our head in the ground pretending that this doesn't exist.
I had a guy on named Gordon Michael Scallion. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think of him?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been able to research him directly. I've seen his map. I know he's one of a cadre of people who claim that there's some nasty things coming up ahead.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is to apply the same scientific method that we've applied to the artifacts to these possibilities. Because remember, Michael, I'm coming at this from another perspective completely. If anybody had ever told me I'd be sitting on the radio in Kansas City on a Tuesday morning talking about possible catastrophes that could end the world, 5 years ago, I would have looked at them and said, "You're nuts."
Yeah.
But our research has led us inexorably from A to B to C, to where now I am beginning to perceive there is a kind of a grand unified physics that drives the solar system and drives the planet as part of it, and that it is subject periodically to what we would call cyclic changes, and that those cyclic changes in the past have been bad, and in the future they will be worse. Now my question was, is this inevitable? Is this the only way the trend curve could go? And my conclusion after looking into this, because obviously I have kind of a reasonable motivation, right?
Yeah.
Is no. There's nothing inevitable at all about this. What has been happening is that the system has been allowed to run down. No one has retuned the system. And when machines or systems are not tuned or maintained, what happens? They run rough. And the solar system is a system. In the hyperdimensional geometry, the spinning of the planets and their orbiting around each other and with each other is part of almost a finely tuned mechanism. And we see evidence now in all kinds of orbital data and spin data and other parameters that NASA has given us from its 30 years of exploration that things aren't quite right out there, that there are dissonances where there should be resonances, that basically out of tune. And it's my theory, and that's why I've gone to certain geologists on our team to see if we can go back and look at the vast amount of data we have record here on Earth to see if these resonances, in fact, were stable up until relatively recently. And we're talking now about enormous amounts of time that people would just freak out if they were to try to think about. We think 6,000 years is an amazing amount of time, right?
Yeah, but what is Earth, 8 billion or more?
It's 4.5 billion, and we're looking at, active life on Earth for the last 500 million. We're looking at conscious life on this planet for several million years. I mean, we're talking amounts of time that most people certainly don't think of before breakfast.
So if we were gone and everything that we have now on the planet, 1 billion years from now, somebody come here from somewhere and they'd say, well, there was never anything here.
Well, yeah, because the forces of erosion are voracious, and they would quickly erase everything we built or thought or sung or written or painted.
And that's just 1 billion years.
That's just 1 billion. But that's the pessimistic side. I'm not willing to give up the fight, Mike, because I think in this physics there are clues to our salvation. There are things we can do. But here's the important thing. We can't do it by ourselves. We've got to do it in concert with other people around this planet, which, of course, is why I think the trend curve of people, not shooting each other and getting together and sitting down and talking to each other is a very timely thing. And that's another reason why I thought it would be useful to go out and talk with these first peoples to see if, in fact, their wisdom, which seems so antithetical to the 20th century, could, in fact, be the glue that will allow us to save the 20th and the 21st centuries. And I really strongly think that we're looking in the right direction. I think there are things they can teach us.
When you were with CBS and Walter Cronkite and NASA and all of that, did you ever think that down the road here you'd be doing this?
No.
With the Mars and
no,
and all these other things that you've done?
But let me tell you why I'm not. I am very comfortable doing what I'm doing, and I feel very good this morning talking about it. Because it's part of a process, Mike. It's part of a legacy that we have got to pass on to the next generation. If science means anything, it is a search for truth that eliminates error and eliminates noise. And that's what we have been trying to do. And the fact that it's led us into these areas, it's led us to discuss the possibility that maybe this civilization is not the first, that it is the fourth in the last 50, 60,000 years, which has climbed up and done some amazing things only to be slapped back down by forces beyond its control or beyond its apprehension.
What about Atlantis?
Well, Atlantis then becomes a metaphor for a previous cycle of such a civilization cycle. And then Lemuria before that. All right?
Yeah, but nobody has attained, as far as we can figure out, what we have done, have they?
I'm beginning to think that maybe they went quite a bit beyond us.
Really?
Yes. Now, the key question, Michael, is if they were so damn smart, why did they get blown away? Why did the planet overwhelm them?
Yeah.
It's because they didn't listen to the clues and they weren't humble enough to realize they should do something together to solve the fundamental problem. In other words, this is, at some level, as the Hopi are talking, this is a metaphysical, this is a spiritual crisis as much as a technological or a scientific crisis. And unless we become a little more humble and listen to the planet on which we live and try to learn from it, you know, there may be some very rocky times ahead for an awful lot of folks.
Yeah, but you can't get people to do anything. In these times, the tri-men souls, they're saying, hey, man, I'm worried about Clinton and Hillary and all this stuff. I don't have time to get into that stuff.
Well, I don't think that's a given. I think it has to do with the fact that there's not very much else that's interesting going on and people are bored to tears. You know, I don't think we're focused so much on the O.J. Simpson trial because we're focused on O.J. Simpson. It's because there's nothing else going on. Television has been the death of this and will be the death of this.
Absolutely.
Because it basically is an unending soap opera. And what we've done now is take people's personal tragedies, put them up on the big screen, and we all sit and watch these poor people in their lives, which are no better or worse than our own. I mean, how would we think if any one of our own lives were put on television day after day after day?
Yeah.
But it's because television has this inexhaustible maw for something. And people are desperately looking for something. Well, have I got news for you? There is real drama out there in them thar hills.
Yeah.
And you're right, Michael. We have made a stunning new discovery in this process. We have discovered that there are structures not just on Mars, but right next door on the moon.
All right, I want to hold you right there. And hey, do you think, Richard, that anybody ever had television? Yes, of course. Any civilization ever had it before?
That's what the grandfathers were telling me. And the kinds of technologies they described, you know, the beings and the things they could do, if it doesn't remind me of hyperdimensional physics, I don't know what would.
What could they do?
Well, things that by our standards appear magical. You know, walking through walls. As my dear friend Arthur Clarke used to say, any sufficient technology is indistinguishable from magic.
If you were going to go back 1,000 years, what would you take back to somebody, some primitive culture, and show them, and to show that you were a supernatural being?
Well, we're talking Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's court, right?
Yeah.
I don't know whether I really have delusions of wanting to play God to somebody who doesn't know as much as I do. I've never had that fantasy.
Yeah, but man, I tell you, we could read, take a book of matches, or just something like that, and they'd say, well, this guy's a supernatural being. Let alone an airplane or a television set or a radio or any of this. I think this whole, everything we're involved in, this whole civilization is just magical. Who could imagine a telephone 500 years ago?
Well, it'd be more likely you'd want to take an encyclopedia so you could build more of them.
Yeah, and what happens to a culture when it's destroyed? How long does it take to come back?
Unfortunately, we may get to find out if we're not careful.
Wasn't that what brought about the Dark Ages when the Parthenon burned?
Well, that was a that was human-induced. When you have periodic, as my friend Stan Tenen says, inquisitions, and you keep burning the libraries, you in effect make people a lot dumber than they should be.
Richard, now I'm going to break for the news for a couple of minutes, and we'll come back to the moon with you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Here's the best there is in this, in all of this, or anything Richard does, he does better than anybody else. Richard Hoagland is here, Monuments of Mars, City on the edge of forever, and we'll be back here with Richard in just a minute on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
83 degrees at 10:30. Bob Meade, KCMO News. Missouri Secretary of State Judy Moriarty has pleaded innocent today to breaking state election law. Moriarty had been charged by a Cole County grand jury, and she entered her plea before Cole County Circuit Judge Byron Kinder. The grand jury accuses Moriarty of helping her son file for a Missouri House election. Also charges her for tampering with a public record for having her son, Tim Moriarty, sign candidate paperwork long after filing closed. Moriarty denied giving her son any special treatment in his filing for the House seat from eastern Jackson County. Tim Moriarty recently folded his bid for the legislature after Attorney General Jay Nixon said he improperly filed. 5-year-old shot and wounded last night in what started as a dispute between two drivers at 59th and Walren. The boy in the back seat of one of the cars, shots fired. One of them pierced the passenger compartment, and he was taken to Mercy Hospital in critical condition. Police trying to identify a man whose body was found in the Missouri River on the north side east of the Paseo Bridge. He was around 40, wearing a yellow and blue shirt with brown shorts and tennis shoes, possibly in the river as long as 5 days. There's no comment so far on word that 4 Navy warships will head toward Haiti tomorrow. A senior Pentagon official says they'll join 9 U.S. warships already cruising off Haiti and take along another 2,000 Marines. O.J. Simpson's pretrial hearing resumes next hour. The judge expected to hear the defense argue why some evidence should be thrown out. Simpson's lawyers say police gathered the evidence without a proper search warrant. South Korea has rejected a North Korean suggestion for mutual cuts in their armed forces. The South's defense minister says the two countries need to build trust before any cuts can occur. On Wall Street at last report, the Dow Jones Industrials were up nearly 15 points. KCMO Kansas City weather, sunny, hot, and humid today. South winds and a high of 95. Tonight, clear with a low of 75, and tomorrow it'll be hot and humid, partly sunny, and a high of 93. Now it's clear and 83 degrees.
The little creamery in Brenham sure is big on taste. That's the reason Bluebell ice cream keeps on tasting great. Homemade flavors, down home goodness, natural as can be. Bluebell is the best tasting ice cream in the country.
If you like those little after-dinner chocolate mints, you should try our new Cookies and Chocolate Mint ice cream. It's made with delicious dark chocolate mint ice cream and chocolate cream cookies. While it doesn't cost a mint, it sure tastes like one.
Bluebell is the best tasting ice cream in the country. Bluebell is the best tasting ice cream in the country.
Look for Bluebell ice cream at all Checkers and Quick Pantries in St. Joseph.
Picture an entire orchestra, a beautiful tableside dinner, and a star. It's not a dream. I'm Nancy Saper, and on Saper Saturday, you and a guest could win tickets to see Emmy Award-winning composer and Entertainment Tonight co-host John Tesh, July 13th at the Folly Theater, and have dinner backstage with John Tesh and his orchestra, especially prepared by California's Restaurant. Call to enter this Saturday, and you could possibly win this special evening with John Tesh, only on Saper Saturday, this Saturday at 10 on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
Talk Radio 810 KCMO presents Space Month at the Kansas City Museum. Now through July 30th, the museum is commemorating the 25th anniversary of man's first moon landing. For one low price, you could fly a Challenger space mission, see the Impact on Jupiter planetarium show, original NASA footage of the first moon landing, get a free ice cream cone, and much, much more during Space Month at the Kansas City Museum from Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
He wished upon a city and became a star. Talk Radio 810, KCMO, Kansas City, presents Mike Murphy.
KCMO.
Well, here's the best guest the show ever had. Richard, how long have we been doing these shows? You know?
I don't know. It seems like a long time.
Seems like almost on the edge of forever, doesn't it?
Was that a set-up line or what?
I don't know. Before we get into some other stuff, what's your address there, and what do you have now?
Okay, the Mars Mission, which is this constituency research group we put together, has memberships. We have a journal that we provide people 4 times a year as an update of both the research and the politics that surrounds it. We have a series of tapes that I've done, various briefings at NASA, the United Nations, and we have a new one that we're going to talk about shortly. We have other educational materials. We have researchers now linked around the world who are doing parts of the puzzle, bits and pieces, that kind of fit together with what we're working on, and we provide people with ways to get hold of them. And it's all available if you call either an 800 number, which is 1-800-424-0031, or you can write us here at 122 Dodd Street. That's D-O-D-D Street, Weehawken, New Jersey, W-E-E-H-A-W-K-E-N, New Jersey, 07087.
All right. How many of the monuments did you sell? How many of those went out?
Well, the book, The Monuments of Mars, I'm told now is about 60,000, 70,000 and climbing. We've just completed a deal for it to be published in Germany and in England. It's been published in Japan. That happened a couple of years ago. My domestic publisher, North Atlantic Books, just called me the other day. They want me to put out another edition. They want to go through another printing. They want me to make some revisions, which will include some of the latest material. And so we're in the process of talking to them about that.
Well, when we first started this, that book was just kind of dead in the water, wasn't it?
It could have been doing better, but some of these things take a long time, Mike. When you're pushing back the paradigm, when you're changing people's minds on things that they've been kind of fixated on for so long, it takes a long time for people to kind of open their minds and consider a new idea.
Richard, what about this comet in Jupiter coming up here on July 16th? Any thoughts about that?
Well, needless to say, I'm intrigued with it. I'm been looking at the physics to see if there are things that we might learn. One of the predictions we could make would be if the impacts are as severe and as many as we've been told, and again, comets are notoriously unpredictable, folks. I must tell you that when I was at the Hayden Planetarium in New York arranging for special events, we were supposed to be heir to the so-called Comet of the Century, which was Comet Kohoutek.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we even wound up borrowing the Queen Elizabeth, that incredible ship, Michael?
Yeah.
And taking her to South America to chase Comet Kohoutek.
Mm-hmm.
We had lunch. I remember a vivid lunch in Central Park with the discoverer, Dr. Kohoutek himself. He was a Czechoslovakian astronomer, and he came over, and we kind of wined him and dined him and put him on the Today Show. And, we made a big deal out of this comet. Well, the comet fizzled. After all the build-up, all the New York hype, everybody, sending in their box tops, etc., the comet, basically, the only place that we saw it was from the South Atlantic on the QE2, and people back in the mainland didn't see a thing.
Yeah.
So I will caution people that with all the hype around the great comet crash of 1994, do not be surprised if it all comes to nothing, if this thing disappears without a trace.
What the heck would happen, though, if this was coming at us?
Well, if it was coming at us, it'd be a very different thing. But see, again, it depends on the size of the chunks. Remember, the Hubble telescope is not looking at the solid chunks. It's looking at clouds of ice crystals that are on trajectories that mimic the orbits of the chunks. If the chunks were to hit the Earth, we'd be in very bad trouble. But if a cloud of ice crystals hit the Earth, you'd have intense meteor displays like the fireworks we retreated to here in New York last night over the skyline, and nothing else would happen. So comets are notoriously unpredictable, and frankly, it's a little premature yet to make any solid predictions about what might or might not happen.
Okay. Let's go to the moon now. How many shows? What are all these shows I'm hearing you've been on?
Well, there are other people out there, Michael.
I know. I know, but somebody called me the other day, said you were on 3 hours with somebody.
I was on 5 hours with Art Bell.
Art Bell, who is he?
Well, he's out of Las Vegas. He has a syndicated radio network. You ought to get a syndicated radio network, Mike.
Well, we carry that show.
Okay, and then there's Laura Lee, who I'm going to be seeing this weekend. I'm going up to the University of Washington in Seattle to do an afternoon presentation, a 5-hour presentation at the university at Kane Hall, in case anybody is going to be wandering from Kansas City to Seattle. And we're going to be showing the moon data. As you have heard, the trail has expanded from Mars to the moon. When we decoded these structures, these monuments, these things on Mars, the key surprise to me and a lot of other people was that there was a regular geometry that could in fact be decoded. And one of the predictions that it made when we did the decoding was that there were a series of latitudes on planets where there might be things to be found. Well, it occurred to me one day, heck, why not apply this code to the moon and see if, in fact, there's something next door? People, as you know, even on your show, from time to time, people have raised a suggestion there might be something on the moon.
Yeah.
And I would always tell them we were too busy to look.
Yeah.
Well, eventually we got unbusy enough so that we could look. Now, the moon has a vast database. I mean, there are literally millions of pictures taken by NASA of the moon. During the Lunar Orbiter series, the Surveyor series, the Ranger series, and of course the Apollo manned landings, which we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Apollo 11 next week. That's notwithstanding now the new Pentagon data from the Clementine mission, which in its own right took 1.5 million pictures before it ran into some problems, all right?
Yep.
So there is a vast amount of data for the moon compared to what we've been living with and looking at on Mars. So it seemed prudent to at least look at one of the predicted sites that the mathematics from Mars had told us about.
Okay, all these pictures, same thing as with Mars, nobody had looked at, and you somehow got access to these?
Well, anybody can get access. I mean, this is public data.
Well, yeah, but if they know this stuff that they don't want us to know...
Well, that's the problem. There does seem to be a trail of hanky-panky as we get into this, and I don't know how much you want to wait the rest of our discussion on the hanky-panky or what we found. So you make the decision. You make the call.
Well, how tough is it?
It is not tough at all. You just got to know how to look. And there are archives all over the world that you can get this stuff and you can compare it. See, the difference between Mars and the moon is that there's only a couple of pictures of Mars, and there's no spacecraft which has successfully gone back in the last 10, 15 years and taken a look at Mars.
Yeah.
With the moon, nobody raised the possibility there was something there until relatively recently. And all of these photographs were given out freely in the beginning to people all over the world. So as my grandmother used to say, it's a bit like trying to stuff the feathers back in a pillowcase.
You mean nobody at NASA or anybody had looked at them?
Well, that's not true, because we're now seeing evidence that they did. But they did it after they had given the photographs out, because they didn't expect they'd find anything. And what we have found are structures or at this site located exactly where the mathematics told us, and they are stupendous structures. Now, what we did is we spent 1.5 years working on this very quietly. In fact, I think we probably did a couple of shows while I was working on this, and I couldn't say anything because I didn't want to give the game away.
Yeah. You said I can't talk about this.
Yep. We debuted our results at Ohio State University on June 2nd. We brought in a video crew, and we videoed the entire 4-hour presentation. While I was away on this trip, visiting with Hopis and others, my people back in New York did an extraordinarily splendid job of editing the tape, and it is now available through the 800 number, and we're calling it Hoagland's Mars, Volume 3, The Moon-Mars Connection.
Is that available through that you gave earlier?
You call 1-800-424-0031, and you ask for Volume 3, The Moon-Mars Connection, and it is ready now.
All right.
Now, what it shows is pretty amazing, because we have structures which are so staggering and so replicable and so stupendous and so awesome right next door that, of course, it is boggling my mind how NASA and the astronauts could have possibly missed them.
What the heck do you see there?
Well, we see towers that are 7-8 miles high. We see remnants of a dome structure over Sinus Medi, which is the central so-called mare on the moon, the one right in the middle of the moon when you look at the full moon on a full moon night.
Yeah.
We see vast arcology-type structures, which are basically like the Biosphere 2 in Arizona, except 100 times bigger. We see evidence of awesome age because there is massive degradation from meteorite bombardment and pounding over millennia and millions and millions and millions of years. And we are seeing these structures at different lighting, from different missions, from different geometries, different directions. You know, we've done all the science that one should do, and frankly, everybody who has seen the tape or seen the data walks away shaking their head absolutely bedazzled and stupefied.
Well, what did you think when you...
Well, remember, I've had a year and a half to get used to this, all right? My initial reaction was, I can't be seeing what I'm seeing. If this is real, then NASA has been lying to us for 30 years. Remember, I was Walter Cronkite's science advisor.
Yes.
I was at CBS. I helped, this nation go to the moon in the way that media and science advisors did in those days. And the feeling of violation, of hypocrisy, of deceit that I get in looking at this data now and knowing that some, not all of them, but some in NASA have known this secret for over 30 years fills me with a kind of anger that I almost cannot describe, because we have a trail of altered catalogs. We found a trail of altered photographs, Michael. We have 2 sets of pictures masquerading under one frame number, and when you get one frame from one archive, it turns out not to match the same frame number from the next archive. Yet they're of the same region, but they were taken a few minutes apart, and they show different details.
Has anybody at NASA said, yes, Richard, this is what it is, this happened, this is
Not
it?
yet, but there was a very strange posting on the computer networks by a kind of unofficial NASA spokesperson 2 days ago. Remember, this has all been hitting the fan since June 2nd.
Yeah.
And we sent copies of the tape to people that I know at NASA. We've sent copies of the tape to the media. We've sent copies of the tape to colleagues. And the NASA folks inside, the honest ones, have only had about a month to look at this, all right?
Yeah.
They started out being very vitriolic, very negative, very, oh, there he goes again, like the Reagan quote.
Right.
Well, 2 days ago, something happened. And this spokesperson posted a message on the America Online computer bulletin board all across the country, which basically is a green light. It basically says, keep it up. It basically said that this kind of alternative airing of ideas about what we found out there is a good thing. And I think it's a signal that people inside have looked at their own damn data, Michael, and they're confirming what we found.
Wow.
So stay tuned.
All right.
And get the photographs, get the tape, and let's begin this process of taking back our space program.
I want to pick up right there when we come back with you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Richard Hoagland is here, and at some point here, Richard's going to be with us another hour. We'll get into some of your calls. If you want to queue up and maybe get in here right now at 576-7681 is our number on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
Today's business PC buyer can choose from so many different brands at so many different prices, it's almost impossible to reach a decision. Some computer buyers have been known to resort to eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Out goes you. While others narrow their choices by using the time-tested method of
I'm buying this PC, I'm buying it not. I'm buying this PC, I'm buying it not.
Here's a fact that should put an end to the indecision. Dell Computer was recently ranked highest in customer satisfaction in the 1993 J.D. Power & Associates Desktop PC Satisfaction Study. Almost 2,000 business PC users took part, which makes the decision pretty obvious to us. But for you traditionalists, there's always
1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, 5 potato, 6 potato, 7 potato more.
To order PCs from the company ranked highest in customer satisfaction, call 1-800-716-DELL.
In other news, Southwestern Bell Mobile Systems has doubled its regional coverage area while lowering its basic rate to $15.95.
Wait a second, is that right?
Tom, we're on the air.
The regional coverage area was expanded to more than 36,000 square miles. That's double. Whoa, that's nearly 3 times bigger.
Tom, keep reading.
So when I'm in Wichita or St. Louis, I can use a cellular phone at home air rates with no roaming fees?
Don't you wish you had a phone right now?
I'd be crazy not to get a cellular phone from Southwestern Bell Mobile Systems. A basic rate of only $15.95. That's news.
Tom!
That's the news.
I gotta go.
Tom, we're not finished.
See ya.
Yet. For more information, visit the Cellular Supercenter at 119th and Metcalf or any authorized dealer. Now this.
Southwestern Bell Mobile System.
Right now! Double coverage area, $15.95. You better hurry.
When you're ready, there's Able Automotive. 321-1030. If your car needs a muffler or brakes, bring it to Able. 321-1030. Keep this number close, since it's time to cure that roaring muffler and those faulty brakes you've gambled on all month. Now, if your car needs new glass, it needs Able Automotive. 321-1030. Free estimates, no hassle, fair prices, and great service. Call today and compare. 321-1030. If your car needs repairs like right now, it needs Able. Able Automotive. Ready when you are. 321-1030.
Gotta admit, these guys at Talk Radio 810 KCMO have guts. They've made the effort to move radio, especially talk radio, into the 90s here in Kansas City. And they take the next step in putting it all together beginning July 11th at 6 p.m. with me. I'm Tom Likas, and I'll be mixing it up with some alternative talk, right where you'd expect to find it. Talk Radio 810 KCMO. And I'll be presenting a new dimension of talk radio, as subscribers to Prodigy, CompuServe, and America Online will be able to communicate with me by posting email while I'm on the air, as well as taking your calls live. So, for alternative talk radio unlike anything you've heard before, tune in the Tom Likas Show beginning July 11th on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
All right, we're back here on Talk Radio 810 KCMO with Richard Hoagland. Okay, now Richard. Hello, Richard.
I'm here.
Okay, so now you see these pictures, you see these domes and these things. What do you say to yourself?
Well, the first reaction is utter unbelievability. I mean, remember, there have been a whole series of books written over the last several decades since we went to the moon, claiming every cockamamie idiotic thing you can imagine. There's like three categories of books. There's the category that says we never went there.
Yeah.
You know, we never went to the moon.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to think that was deliberate disinformation designed to keep people from asking, well, if we went, what do we find? Put that one aside. Okay. Then there's a set that write the most incredible nonsense about we found alien bases on the moon.
Yeah.
And I've researched some of those now because I got kind of curious, again, in the vein that government, if it wants to keep a secret, since you can't keep secrets anymore, what do? You have to lie about the secret. If you spread enough lies, the truth will never get through because people won't have time to winnow out the truth from the lies.
Well, you call everybody crazy that's involved in it.
That's right. You call them wild-eyed weirdos.
Yeah.
That seems to be the latest term.
Yeah.
So I went looking at some of these books that claimed that NASA had found secret alien bases and then was hiding them. And what I found was that some of the same photographs where we found real things were in these books, but they were mislabeled. And they were mislabeled over and over again. I mean, once could be an accident, right?
Yeah.
But not 3 or 4 times. And then the things that were pointed out in the picture were not real, but the things that are real, the artifacts that we have now, pegged down, were not noted at all. And so it became obvious to me that we're looking at a very sophisticated campaign to disinform and to keep real scientists, real people, real researchers away from the truth. Now, who has been masterminding this and how high it goes, I have no way of knowing.
Would the president know?
I don't think so. I think this has been handled by a small group inside the government, certainly, beyond NASA, who have, because of the Brookings report, taken it unto themselves to basically try to keep us from destroying ourselves. Remember, Brookings is this official NASA study that we found going back now to the late 60s that was submitted to Congress as law, which basically warned that if NASA were to find evidence of artifacts or extraterrestrials, that it probably shouldn't tell the rest of us because if it did, it would, quote, possibly destroy civilization. I think there's been a lot of fanatics in government who have taken Brookings very much to heart, and they have been keeping this kind of information from us in a very careful, assiduous manner for a very long time.
But we have the right to know this.
Of course we do, Michael. I mean, look, we are looking at high crimes and misdemeanors here. We're looking at treason. We're looking at something that is so against the Constitution and is so against common decency that as we go through the steps of proving this, and we're going to prove it, Because the honest folks inside, I think from this communique we got a couple days ago, have basically raised the white flag. And they're trying to tell us between the lines that they're looking at their own photographs and they're finding what we've found. And of course, the beauty is there are millions of pictures of the moon. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a stunning 3D computer graphics flyover of the moon?
I don't think I ever did.
Haven't you kind of wondered why? I mean, here it is right in our own backyard. We've been there God knows how many times. We've had astronauts walking around. We've had stuff in orbit. We photographed it from every angle. And yet when NASA goes up to the hill to try to get money to do another mission, they show a recreation of a moon in the outer solar system, but they never show a speeding journey across Mare Imbrium and down the Alpine Valley on our own moon.
Well, that's like you did with your Mars film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they've never done that. And when was the last time you saw a new moon picture? If you look in the textbooks and the magazines, we're coming up now to the 20th anniversary, they march out the same tired 8 pictures over and over and over again, and we've got millions, folks. You bought and paid for them. Wouldn't you think they'd give us a new picture once in a while?
I guess.
Well, they can't. They don't dare. Because there's amazing crystalline skyscrapers sticking 7-8 miles up into the black, airless skies of the moon, and I showed them at Ohio State the other night.
What'd they say?
Well, there were 700 people. It was no air conditioning. It was 4 hours. It was darn hot. They stuck with me, and at the end, they gave me a standing ovation.
Is that right?
Because they can see that they've been diddled with.
Can you see this structure?
Of course you can see it, Michael. When you get your tape, you'll see it yourself.
A crystal tower?
A crystal tower with a cube about a mile across sitting on top of a structure 7-8 miles above the moon's surface.
Wow.
And it's only one. I mean, we are now getting scientists calling me who have gotten copies of the tape or copies of the preliminary photographs, have gone into their own archives that are scattered around the country, like the University of Washington in St. Louis. There's a major NASA archive. University of Arizona in Tucson, there's a major archive. At Tempe, Arizona, at Arizona State University, there's a sub-archive. And Flagstaff at the U.S. Geological Survey, there's an archive. In Washington, at the Air and Space Museum, there's an archive. At the Goddard Space Flight Center, there is the main archive. It's called the National Space Science Data Center. You get a list, you call NASA and you get a list of their photo archive repositories around the world. And you simply send them $15 and they'll send you an 8x10 negative of these stunning pictures with the frame numbers.
They will?
Of course they will, because it's public domain. They have to by law. And what's happening is we're now getting scientists going in and looking at the frame numbers that I gave out at Arizona, at Ohio State, and they're finding the things we have found, and the geologists are absolutely freaking out because, of course, there should be nothing of this nature on the moon they think they know.
Richard, we're going to come back. We seem to have some static on this line. I wonder if it would be possible for us to call you back.
Okay.
He designed the man and the woman that went into wherever that went. You designed that, didn't you, Richard?
Well, no. It was our idea. It was Carl Sagan and his wife, Linda, who actually designed the plaque on Pioneer 10.
But you had a hand in it, didn't you?
Yeah, Eric and I were the ones that suggest doing something like that. Eric Burgess.
Okay, now we have the moon with 7-8 mile structures there you think are made of crystal.
Well, they're made of something that looks for all the world like glass because it optically behaves like glass. 60% of the moon's surface from the analysis of the moon rocks the astronauts brought back is glass. It's silicon dioxide. 60% of the Earth's surface is made of the same material. Silicon and oxygen, which is basically the components of sand or glass, is very common on silicate planets in the solar system, if not in other parts of the universe. What's interesting to me is that there's a NASA study, which I talked about at Ohio State, where NASA, in its projections, in its plans for building bases on the moon someday, is looking at building them out of lunar glass. And the reason is because in a vacuum, glass loses the structural crystal defects that make it so weak on Earth, and it becomes as strong as steel. Well, it's looking from our data now as if somebody anticipated NASA by many millions of years in the idea of massive application of lunar glass to structural components.
Okay, you think these are millions of years old then? Well,
they're at least millions of years old, and the reason we can know that is because they've been beaten to hell by meteorites. I mean, we're looking at things that have been pounded and pounded and pounded, and there appears to be a change in the degradation from looking at the stuff we found in the center of the lunar disk to things over on the right-hand side, the area that is called Mare Crisium. They're in much better condition on the right-hand side than they are in the center of the disk, and that, we think, is due to exposure to meteors as the moon orbits around the Earth.
What the heck do you think they were built for?
Well, I think they were built for habitation. The scale is what is so incredibly awesome. I mean, one of our geologists, Dr. Bruce Cornett, who has done an analysis and posted a white paper on the computer networks, on the internet of computer networks, he believes that these things are probably millions, if not even of years older, if not even older, and that the scale is consistent with of habitation, some kind of colonization from some other place.
Well, let's get some calls going for you.
Okay.
Here. Let's go to Carl here. Carl, you're on KCMO.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask your guest a question, mainly what his thinking is regarding the theory of evolution.
All right.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think the theory of evolution is a theory, and I think that some of the data that we are uncovering puts major crimps in the theory. I mean, the theory of evolution is that we, humans, as the end product of life on this earth, have been all by our lonesome for billions of years, and that life has gotten increasingly complex through natural processes. I think what we're seeing in our work is evidence of some kind of outside intervention, that there has been someone or something else having a hand in the evolution of life on Earth.
You mean genetic altering?
Well, whatever you want to term, a helping hand. Obviously, it would have to manifest at the genetic level because that's where the life codes are stored, all right?
Yeah.
But, I understand where the caller's coming from. He basically wants to know if I have a religious persuasion, if I'm coming at this from a biblical perspective. And I must say that when you begin to look at all this evidence, the kind of clean perspective that, we've been left all by our lonesome and that nothing has changed here on Earth, nothing has intruded, no one has interfered, I think is going to have to be reappraised. I think people are going to have to think about some kind of interferences by someone. Now, is that interference in evolutionary process God? I don't know. I want to see where the evidence takes us. Remember, God gave us a brain to figure things out, so I'd like to use it and figure things out.
How about these things that we seem to be coming upon now? The genetic code that is said that we've almost completed it. If we can figure out what it is, we'll be able to grow spare parts and all that. Do you think we've learned somehow some of these things that we're now starting to use?
Well, I mean, there's a gap, Michael, between the technological ability to do something and the wisdom or spiritual understanding to do something. And when you begin to tamper with the process of life itself, you have to, again, harking back to my discussion about the Hopi, you have to approach life with a reverence for life. You have to realize that we're part of a web, we're part of a skein, we're part of a system of interconnected life forms on this planet, and part of the problem of our Western civilization is we trample so carelessly, so casually on other life forms. We think nothing of exploiting other life forms to feed our life form. We do not view ourselves as part of a vast, intricate, interconnected, interdependent system of life where the benefits to all is important to all. And I think unless we learn that lesson, we have some very hard things up ahead for us.
Let's go to Tom here for you. Tom, you're on KCMO.
Yeah, I got two questions for Mr. Hoagland.
Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, on the crystals you were talking about on the moon, are they on the dark side of the moon?
No. Well, first of all, there is no dark side.
Okay, so it's constantly rotating, so
the moon is exactly. The moon rotates in 1 month, so every 2 weeks you got day and night on any
right.
one spot.
Okay, what I was trying to get at is make sure everybody understood that this wasn't an ice crystal. This was.
Oh no!
Okay,
These are glass structural things that are very large. They're the mega cube, which we call it because it's so damn big, is about 1 mile across. It's made up of a number of subcubes on the size of city blocks. You can see it standing on this spindly glass-like tower reflecting light back toward the camera. We've now got it on 2 orbiter pictures on 4 Apollo images, and I just got word this morning from one of our scientists at an archive out west in Arizona that they found it on 3 more Apollo images from different angles. So we've got geometry and triangulation up the kazoo here. This is a real structure standing 7-8 miles above the moon.
Well, let me ask you this. Now that you've awakened NASA on this, you think there might be more manned flights to moon coming up?
Well, the political process will take a long time. If we wanted to go back to the moon tomorrow, it would take us 10 years to do so because we basically destroyed everything.
Yeah.
You know, we start... here's something interesting. Last month, go and find the Scientific American from last month. I think it was June, all right?
Okay.
There's a cover story written by John Logston, who was a space policy analyst from Washington, on the Soviet space program. It's called "Was There a Race for the Moon?" Because the Russians have now kind of declassified their files, all right? And this is a fascinating article, Michael, because it basically lays out that the Russians were racing us to the moon, like John Kennedy was trying to get us there, but they never admitted it was a race. Khrushchev initially, and then the other guys when he died, they tried to pretend that they weren't racing us, but of course they were going full tilt. There's one part of this discussion of the Soviet space program that I found absolutely riveting, and it has to do again with motives and reactions of finding something so awesome on the moon that you basically come home with your tail between your legs and you never tell anybody. There was a moment when our Apollo program was ending, when the Soviets were finally going to get their act together and they were about to launch their first missions to the moon, their first Russian cruise to the moon. They suddenly replaced the head of the Soviet space program with another guy, and he not only closed down the moon program, but he destroyed all of the boosters. He had them cut up with acetylene torches, and all the spacecraft burned.
Why'd you do that?
Well, the authors of this piece in Scientific American last month call it a paranoid schizophrenic rage. And what I think it was a reaction to what we found and the idea that the Russians, who were even more disturbed about the social implications and potential destabilization of their society, figured out that they would never let anybody get within 250,000 miles of the moon, and they made damn sure that they destroyed the technological means to do so.
What do you think would happen if they came out and said, yeah, this is what Richard says is true?
Nothing. I think we'd go on. We would embrace Kennedy. Look, I am going to go and try to meet with Bill Clinton. There are people in Washington right now trying to very confidently arrange a meeting between me and the President of the United States, and I'm going to basically say, look, Bill, you have it in your power to start the world anew. You have it in your power to so kick the economic engine and this vast behemoth called the United States into the 21st century to give people jobs and opportunities and vision and a reason to get up in the morning and a rallying call for all the best things of the human condition. I'm going to recommend that we go for it and we open the files, and he do with NASA like he did with the Atomic Energy Commission, and we stop hiding these secrets from the people who bought and paid for them, the American.
You think you can get to him?
Well, there are people, very good friends, who are working even as we speak to try to arrange a meeting.
All right,
Mike, real quick. First of all, before I hang up, I need that number again, and also I'd like to have you talk about the crop circles. Last time or time two before you were on, you said you had some more information on the crop circles, and you would get back with.
Yes, sir. Okay. You hang up, and we'll shoot that number out to you again. And after the break, Richard will come back and maybe shoot at the crop circles a little bit. What's your phone number there, Richard?
Okay, for the new video, the Moon-Mars Connection, which is our Ohio State presentation delivered on June 2nd, 2 hours. It's going to be 2 tapes. It's going to be 4 hours worth of video to watch. So get prepared. Learn where your rewind button is, all right?
Pack a lunch.
It's 1-800-424-0031.
Give it again.
1-800-424-0031, and you ask for Operator 5.
All right. I'll be right back with you, Richard. Richard Hoagland here with us. We'll be back to take some more of your calls. 576-7681 is our number. You know, I've been telling you about the good folks at Tony Martin's Dodge in Platte City. And if you're looking to buy a new Dodge, then go see Tony, because he runs a different kind of dealership. There's never any high pressure. Never any sales tactics. Just a commitment to one-on-one service to meet your individual needs. And Tony and his staff really care about you. And it's important to them that you have a pleasant buying experience. And wait till you see the selection they have. The new Dodge Ram pickup truck, Motor Trend's Truck of the Year. They have a great selection of 4x2s and 4x4s and gassers and diesels and 3/4 tons. And if you're looking for a minivan, boy, have they got those. The Caravans on the lot and the hot new Dodge Intrepid. And if you don't see what you want on the lot, listen, Tony will order it for you. You ask him, you say, I want a purple one with gold tires. And Tony will order it for you that way. Tony Martin's Dodge in Platte City, I-29 North to the Platte City exit 19, or call him at 858-5575. You know, I was talking about I had a problem with the car. Well, I've had several here in the last few months, and I call these guys, and boy, I'm telling you, they just bend over backwards to take care of you. They want to help you, and they're your friend. And you got to have a friend in the car business, because these cars are getting weird. And you got a friend in the car business with Tony. When you call him at 858-5575, he's going to help you. Tony is in Platte City, Tom and Leavenworth, Dale and Lee Summit, and now Hank down in Warsaw.
You can't run a business without having good business insurance.
Roy Libby, president of a chain of yogurt retail stores. Mr. Libby has kept his business insurance with American Family for 15 years.
I think it's important for my insurance agent to understand my business because he can recommend some coverage that I might not be aware of. Loss of product, for instance, liability questions, key employee coverage. My insurance agent from American Family does extremely well that way.
Price is also important to Mr. Libby.
Compared to other companies, American Family has always been equal to or better than in price, and their service is unbeatable. I think American Family is the best insurance company around.
Loyalty, the mark of satisfied customers.
American Family Insurance.
In Gladstone, see Bill Martine. In Independence, see Dan Hanna. And in Johnson County.
For a minute or two or whatever you want to do, Richard, about crop circles. Anything new going on there?
Well, I had an occasion to meet with Colin Andrews, who is probably the preeminent crop circle researcher in the world. I met with him in Los Angeles when we were headed out toward Hawaii for some meetings about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He has gone to England to investigate the current flurry or flap of crop symbols that have appeared. There's some pretty stunning geometric arrangements which are appearing this summer. I have not had time to even get into them because, frankly, we've been focusing on the lunar work, and there's only so much you can do in a 24-hour day.
Yeah.
I will say again, for the record, that as we looked at crop circles a couple of years ago and found that their complexity and geometry and the sizes and the ratios of various features to each other within these symbols was overwhelmingly tetrahedral. In other words, it was a reflection of the same geometry and mathematics we've decoded in the structures on Mars. It became pretty obvious to me that Doug and Dave, the guys in the London pub, could not have done it because they don't know
with a string
tetrahedral geometry. All right.
Oh, that was insane. Why do they always?
Of course, it's insane.
They say, here are these guys with a stick, and here's how they did it.
Well, they did not do it, and when you dismiss that nonsense, you're left with a real mystery, which is something is imprinting a geometric pattern in the crops in England and other places in the world. And the geometry is the same that we've decoded in a set of alien ruins on a planet millions of miles away. Now, if that doesn't give you pause and make you ask what is really going on and why is the government suppressing certain information, then nothing will. When you add to that the detailed analysis of the crop itself, such as done by Dr. Levengood up in Rochester, New York, who is a biophysicist who has been acquiring samples for the last decade of crops from various crop circles and control samples from outside.
Yeah.
And he has been subjecting them to a range of very sophisticated biological assays and technologies. And what he's found is that the crop circles are the product. When you analyze the crop from the crop circles, it's obvious that some kind of high energy has been applied to the crop in the circle as opposed to the crop outside the circle, which, of course, does not come from pounding on them with a string and a board. Right?
Oh, yeah.
This is something at the level of the cellular nature of the biology, some directed energy field or something. Now, we can speculate where this energy comes from or what kind of technology creates it, but I would be willing to bet anybody that it ain't from this planet, meaning it's not the military, it's not top-secret government agencies, it's not sophisticated hoaxers, it's not devil worshippers, it's none of the nonsense that we hear, so we're left with a real mystery.
All right.
And the only thing that connects it at the moment to our work is the geometry, and therefore the message about a physics is the same. And my personal opinion is that somebody, and I'm going to leave out who, I don't know who, but somebody who knows a lot more than we do is gently trying to give us a few clues to get off our duff and figure this stuff out because it's important to us.
Are they going to let us?
Important to our future.
Are they going to let us, if we don't, as you said at the beginning of the program, figure this out and straighten it out? Are they going to let us go boom if we don't?
Michael, that's a complete speculation. I must say that from what I've seen, I think our fate is in our hands, and I think that the more good people get off their duff and help, the better for everybody else.
Let's go to Derek in Nebraska City. Derek?
Yeah, morning, Mike.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good show.
Yeah.
I had two quick questions for Mr. Hoagland. Mr. Hoagland, I heard you on the Art Bell show there. We get, we get that there in Kansas City, I guess, station there. And you had mentioned something about mounting a mission to Mars yourself. I was wondering...
No, a mission to the moon.
Oh.
An unmanned mission to the moon. I, in fact, did have meetings in Los Angeles. There's a lot of out-of-work aerospace workers now in Los Angeles, in California. And what we're discussing is actually putting together the financing and sending a small unmanned vehicle in the order of 1,000 pounds back to the moon to go into orbit and basically, on behalf of everybody, take the damn pictures and confirm once and for all of what's waiting there.
Now,
was that possible to do? The government?
Of course, Michael, if the Pentagon can go to the moon for $75 million, these are the guys that brought you ermine-lined toilet seats.
Yeah.
What do you think the private sector could do?
About 100,000.
Universal spent $40 million on the Back to the Future ride. I must say that we have had some serious interest on the part of some people in bankrolling a private mission to the moon. There are two other companies not associated.
And that would be permitted?
Of course. It's in the law.
You mean that wouldn't be sabotage, the CIA, the FBI,
Michael, you're sounding like a darn paranoid.
The IRS.
This is supposed to be the United States of America, for God's
but
sake.
You know it isn't. Anyway.
Well, it better damn well become it once again, and that's why I'm on the air this morning. We have got to return the government to, by, and other than for the people.
I was curious about...
You think that if somebody could come up with the money and fund this, that they would allow you to do this privately?
Well, who is to say we're going to tell them when we're going to launch?
Well...
I was curious
and
about...
from where?
Yeah. I was curious about one more thing. Now, Sean Morton, who's also on the Art Bell show, he had came on and said that the Pentagon has already sent CIA, FBI agents to the moon, and that they have bases on the moon now on the dark side.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
This is where the things get wacko.
Yeah.
I think that's all crapola, and I'll tell you why. If anybody had the capability of sending anybody anywhere, don't you think they would have quietly gone through the files and filched out all the good pictures so we wouldn't see anything, we couldn't find anything?
Mm-hmm.
Would they have allowed Apollo to even photograph this stuff in the beginning, in the first place?
Mm.
I'll tell you one thing, I absolutely categorically now know we've been to the moon because nobody could fake the kinds of things we found.
Well,
the structures are so awesome, and the correlation with different missions, different lighting, different geometries, different technologies, Michael, is so complete that, there is no way that anybody could be doing some of the nonsense that we hear they're doing, but it makes a good story, and it keeps real people from taking the real stuff seriously.
Wouldn't the astronauts have been able to see this with the naked eye?
Of course they would have, and I'm sure they did.
Why didn't they say anything?
Because they did, and we didn't understand them.
What'd they say?
I have gone back through the archives now of the space conferences. The Lunar Science Conference is held in Houston every year. There are now 25 years, a quarter of a century, of lunar science conferences, all right?
Yeah.
And in these papers, which literally are feet high, I've got stacks of mission documents and transcripts and papers that literally cover the den. This is a lot. There's a lot of paperwork. The government loves to create paper. All right. Anyway, in going through these, what I found is very important. I found papers by geologists, by the astronauts themselves, describing phenomenon, describing verbatim the things we're seeing, but they don't recognize what they're describing, Michael. They are seeing, don't understand because they didn't have a context.
Can you give me an example of something that was described?
Yeah. They're flying on Apollo 16 over Mare Crisium, which is the mare about 300 miles across in the upper right-hand corner of the moon when you're looking at the moon from the Earth, all right?
Yeah.
Mare Crisium has a stunningly hexagonal base. Hexagonal craters? I mean, with straight edges? Give me a break, all right? Wait till you see the pictures. Anyway, the astronauts are flying over Mare Crisium, and they're looking down. This is from Apollo 15 now, Warden, Scott, and Irwin, all right? And in their debriefings afterwards, they describe on tape that they saw certain rays from a crater crossing Crisium, crossing over this mare. And they comment, I'm going to paraphrase now because I don't have the quote in front of me, that they cannot escape the impression that these rays are floating somehow above Crisium. It looks as if it's a haze suspended over the mare, and we're somehow looking through it. Well, they were looking at the glass. They were looking at the much better preserved fragments of the dome over Crisium. But, of course, since the dome was such an outrageous idea that never crossed their mind, they were mentally fighting with the idea that they were looking down through something, but they couldn't see what they were looking through, so they had this idea of haze or smoke or whatever. It's now totally consistent with the photography and the geometry and the triangulation on the many photographs that we are in the process of analyzing.
I'm going to do a break for the news here. Come right back to you. Richard Hoagland is here with us. 576-7681. We'll get some more of your calls on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
87 degrees at 11:30. Bob Meade, KCMO News. Kansas City presents Mike Murphy.
And we are back, my friends, here with my friend Richard Hoagland is here with us. And, boy, what excitement. You get excited on a daily basis, probably, don't you, Richard? Every day you get up and say, oh, my God, what am I going to find now?
Well, you know, when, as my friend Stan says, Stan Tennant, he says the difference between the fake stuff and the real stuff is when you turn the crank on real stuff, new stuff comes out.
Yeah.
That's what research is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a quest, a kind of an open road where you keep finding new things, and the next thing leads to the next, and on and on. If anybody had told me a decade ago that I would be just sitting here on the air discussing structures on the moon found on photographs that were required when I was literally hanging on every photograph coming back from NASA when I was at the museum or at CBS or at the Hayden, I would have told them they'd be absolutely stark raving mad.
Like green cheese.
But the photographic evidence, and anybody can get it. I want to underscore, Michael, that all they have to do is open the archives, look in the archives, and it's there, and you can order the stuff. You know, we will give out a list of frame numbers. If somebody wants to fax me here at the Mars mission, we'll give them a list of frame numbers, and you can order this stuff from your nearest NASA archive, and it is on the photographs. They have been unable to get to every photograph, and they will be unable to get to every photograph because in addition to the official archives, they freely gave out thousands upon thousands of pictures all over the world to unofficial people, to museums, to libraries, to government officials and whatever. And all those photographs, if they began altering data, would come back to haunt them. And remember, we don't put people in jail for committing crimes anymore. We put them in jail for trying to cover up the crime.
Yeah. Well, let's go to Ken here for you. Ken, you're on KCMO.
Thanks for having these kind of shows, Mike. This is why I listen to you.
Oh, it's fun, isn't it? And we've said this before, Richard. This is the greatest story of all time.
Well, it's an unfolding story, and when you say fun, I twinge a little because it's not fun, it's important. If our government has taken the real space program from us, if a handful of crazy fanatics have basically out of fear and trepidation hidden what we really found, it's not fun, it is a crime, and it deserves to be found out and punished.
Well said.
Have you read the book or saw the book Somebody Else is on the Moon?
Yeah, sure.
Now that kind of a half and half thing, it kind of concentrates on two things. First, an archaeological type thing, which also they show the spires, They show other dome-type structures, but yet they also get into kind of, not so much that the United States and Russia are still there, but also they talk about that, but that somebody is still there, mainly for mining operations.
Well, let me stop you right there. Years ago, may rest his soul, my dad gave me a copy of that book for my birthday. And I read it very carefully. This is 20-some years ago.
Quite a bit.
I must say I could not see one thing that George Leonard said was on the moon in those photographs. And
I could, because I saw the columns that they have, and they show the shadows from them. And they show that they are a very sharp pyramidal type.
In fairness to Leonard, we now need to go back and look at those pictures the way we looked at the photographs that we've acquired. But where I think he made his mistake, and I think this may have been an honest mistake, because of the vast scale of the engineering that we're seeing, I think that a lot of his interpretations of X-drones and mining rigs and all that was simply grasping at straws because he couldn't imagine structures built on a scale. I mean, we're talking a dome over Sinus Medi or Chrysium. We're talking about doming in the equivalent of Los Angeles with an artificial structure that would rise tens of miles above the surface, be composed of trillions of tons of titanium and steel and glass in multiple subcompartments, and would cover a literally enormous amount of real estate.
Well, he gets into also the fact that the moon itself is artificial. He said that for a couple things, first of all, was that probes that hit it, the moon actually resounded like a bell when they were hit.
This is where not having the right kind of expertise can get you in deep trouble. If we let me back up. The Apollo astronauts placed several sensitive instrument packages on the moon during the Apollo program. The heart of these instrument packages were something called seismometers, designed to measure moonquakes. It is true that when the moon is hit by a meteorite or by a rocket stage in the latter years of the Apollo program, these seismometers recorded vibrations, sometimes lasting over 4 hours, and this was incredibly anomalous by any terrestrial standard. But here is where our data now explains this mystery of the space program. If you have structures of cities and a vast dome over them, Michael, and you have you ever listened as a kid, there in the Midwest, you must have gone to your local railroad trestle, and after the train passed, you kind of listened to the trestle?
Oh, sure.
Well, the trestle, as a regular geometric truss structure, will store the vibration energy of a passing train, and it will store it for hours. The trestle would continue to ring. I remember as a kid we used to live in rural Maryland, and we would go out to the trestle because that's where we used to jump off and go swimming, And we'd jump oftentimes so the train didn't hit us. And sometimes we'd climb back up, and we'd find even a half hour, hour later, the trestle was still vibrating, even though the train was long gone.
Well, what the heck is it that you hear when you hold a seashell up to your ear?
That's a different acoustic phenomenon.
Well, another thing he had also is something he approached was an eclipse. Now, he said that the odds of the moon being perfectly interspaced between the sun and the earth was billions to 1 as far as the way it just absolutely perfectly covers the disk of the sun up. Now, he kind of came up to that where his deal was, I think where he was trying to get at was it was an artificial, basically spaceship that was placed in Earth orbit. In addition to that, also, you talk about the spires, and they were basically giant condos, correct? Now,
well, we don't know what they're used for.
Well, if they have the technology to build that, we all know that the moon is constantly being bombarded by meteorites and micrometeorites. If they had that technology to do so, would they do that in a void where they knew it would be susceptible to that, or would it have to, at the time that they built that, would the moon have to have had an atmosphere?
No, the moon did not have an atmosphere. But remember, you are assuming that meteor bombardment has been part of the long history of the solar system.
Well, meteors are a common fact. I mean, micrometeorites hit the moon all the time.
But where do meteors come from?
Well, they come from space in general. They're just basically what you're doing is your body goes through space, and the meteor is sitting there waiting for it to go in.
But where does the meteor come from? You say space in general. Space, as Uhura once said on Star Trek, is a very big place.
Well, see what I'm saying. Would you admit those?
Sir, you're not letting me answer the question.
All right.
All right, answer, Richard.
Meteors come from within the solar system. They have never been observed. There has been no meteor or no comet ever observed entering the solar system from interstellar space, from outside the solar system.
Well, do we have the technology to do that, though?
Yes, we do. All right? The fact is that when you bounce radar off them, you can detect their velocities when they enter the atmosphere very accurately, and none of them have what's called a parabolic velocity, meaning a velocity of entry into the Earth's atmosphere that is in excess of the escape velocity from the whole solar system. Now, this is telling us a most important piece of information, that meteors are part of the debris of the solar system, not from the galaxy beyond. Now, the reason that's important is because my friend Tom Van Flandern, who was the former head of the Celestial Mechanics branch at the Naval Observatory in Washington, has for years been propounding the theory that meteors and comets and asteroids are all products of a relatively recent explosion that destroyed the so-called fifth planet in the solar system that used to orbit between Mars and Jupiter.
Like Velikovsky.
Well,
what he said.
Not kind of, but we'll let that ride for a minute. The point is this. If that happened relatively recently in the history of the solar system, that is millions of years ago as opposed to billions, then before that planet blew up, there would have been no meteors, and there would have been no bombardment even on an airless world.
The asteroid belt.
And there would have been no asteroid belt, all right? There would have been no Earth-crossing asteroids or Earth-crossing meteoroids or comets or anything like that. Those are recent products of the destruction of an entire planet by some process. What that tells us is that space would have been a very clean, benign, safe place in which to build up until this unforeseen catastrophe, which wiped out a world in our backyard a few million years ago.
Well, listen, folks, I got a break here.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks for your call. Richard, I'll be right back to you.
Okay.
And boy, oh boy, Richard is like a conductor conducting a symphony here, isn't he? And we'll be right back with Richard Hoagland. They've got the... You take that head, pull that headpiece back, and you got that green tamale in there. And that will cure any disease that you may have. I think that stuff is luscious. So you go out and you have a dozen oysters. They even have a thing for 30 cents. What is this? Friday, 30-cent oysters, Monday through Friday from 3 until 7. 30 cents for an oyster. Did you ever try and shuck an oyster? Do you know how hard that is? How can they sell oysters for 30 cents? And on Saturday, they do it from noon to 7. So, man, you're looking for some food from the islands and some music from the islands, you go out to Katie's Crab House, and you're just going to love it. With their fresh fish every day at lunch and dinner at 79th and State Line. And you be sure and tell them that Murphy sent you.
Hi, I'm Jay Butler.
And I'm Barbara Butler.
Admittedly, our career is not for everyone.
But I can't think of a time when I wanted to do anything else.
Naturally, after all, Dad is in the business.
And our great-grandfather started the business.
And just think of all those families we've helped through the generations.
It's not for everyone.
That's why we're here, the Joseph Butler and Son Funeral Home.
And daughter.
And daughter. A 4th-generation dedication to helping the people of Kansas City when they need help and guidance the most.
I feel good about what we do at Joseph Butler and Son and daughter. We offer a lot of experience, a lot of tradition. That's 4 generations of trust.
And we plan to keep on serving you to help you plan ahead, to help you make exactly the arrangements you want.
Call us, and whomever answers the phone truly knows how to help. We've been helping for nearly 100 years.
Joseph A. Butler and Son Funeral Home.
And daughter.
371-7000. 371-7000.
My name is Joe Carbo. I'm a detective sergeant at a major New York hospital. Work stress gets so bad that it produces headaches, like a pounding, pulsating headache, like being trapped in a vice. I have to take something to relieve the pain. I'll take Anacin. I see no reason to take anything else. Anacin works. I've always taken Anacin, probably more than 30 years. When I'm in pain, I'll take Anacin and the pain will go away.
Strong, fast Anacin. It works on your headache so you can work better. Use as directed.
Hi, folks. This is Mike Murphy. You know, Supernatural Health Food Center has a great product that absolutely works for sore joints and bones.
Arthex was developed to ease aches and pains in joints and bones.
This is Don Reinhardt, and I've suffered aches and pains in my joints to the point where I could hardly get in and out of a bathtub. And I was introduced to Arthex by a friend, And since that time, I have had a miraculous recovery. The pain is receded to the point where I'm out playing golf again and enjoying life as I did prior to having all my joint pains into my body. I would prescribe it to anybody. It's just a great, great feeling.
To assure quality, accept no substitutions. Stop by Supernatural Health Food Center in Grandview at 12706 South 71 Highway or call 765-1135 to find out how you can get a free bottle of this fantastic product. And for those calling out of town, call 1-800-POWER-21. Remember, prevention is the key to good health.
We're back with a few more minutes of Richard Hoagland. Richard, I thank you a million for being on here this long. I've never had you on this long.
Well, it's kind of overdue, and we do have some major new stuff to talk about. I mean, the lunar connection now, to me, is extraordinary, both for the science, for what we found, and maybe even more so for the politics. I mean, every time I think about the fact that the real discoveries of the Apollo program, what we risked the lives of all those astronauts to bring home, has been hidden from the rest of us for over a generation, I get very, very angry.
Is there anything, people, you used to give somebody's address or something to write to somebody? Who was that?
Well, it was the chairman of the House Space Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, but I've stopped giving it out because you can write letters till the cows come home and not a damn thing happens.
Nothing happens.
The political process is broken. The only person now who can fix this is the President of the United States himself.